Hi, everyone, and good morning. Welcome to National Distance Learning Week with SUNY Online. As Erin mentioned, I'm Alejandra Pickett, and I'm the Director of Online Teaching here at SUNY Online. It is my very best pleasure to welcome you today to the session and to introduce our speaker this morning. Allene Slating joined the SUNY Online teaching team in June as our senior online instructional designer. Prior to joining SUNY Online, Allene was at SUNY Delhi for 9 years in various roles, supporting faculty and students on campus and online. She last served as their instructional designer and DLE admin and continues to adjunct in a hybrid course. Allene also received the 22-23 SUNY Chancellor's Award for Excellence in Professional Service. Allene has a Master's of Education degree in Education and Technology from the University at Buffalo and is particularly interested in how media, information design, and communication impact learning. She's a lifelong learner and seeks to improve her Spanish language skills, which I did not know, Allene, and to experiment with gluten-free vegetarian cooking and challenge herself with dual sports motorcycle riding. I'm very pleased to introduce you and to see this presentation today. Welcome, Allene.
Thank you, Alejandra. We'll have to talk more about hobbies. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. Like Alejandra introduced, I am Allene Slating, Senior Instructional Designer at SUNY Online. I support faculty, staff, and campuses in online learning, and I'm very happy to be here with you all. As a general disclaimer, I am not a lawyer, and I'm always learning more about accessibility. So I am here today to share an optional resource that I created in the hopes that it'll be helpful as you make your course content accessible and in preparation for the updated Title II requirements. So today I will describe accessibility in the context of learning with digital materials and technologies. I will introduce the optional accessible course content checklist. I will demonstrate how it can be applied to a course or adapted to meet specific campus needs. And I will also highlight important points and tips for creating accessible digital content. So getting started, and as a refresher about accessibility. So when we're talking about accessibility, and particularly in this context of online learning or learning with digital materials, we're referring to providing instructional content and technologies that can be perceived and engaged with by everyone, all of our students, regardless of what means they are using to interact with it. From a technical perspective, if something is accessible, that means it is properly formatted and can be used with or without assistive technology. In general, we make our content accessible to support all of our students, but particularly those with disabilities, because we want to provide an equitable learning experience for our students. Now, when we're thinking about the upcoming months, we want to ensure our content is accessible in proactive preparation for ADA Title II updates that take effect in April 2026, when as public higher ed institutions, we will need to have everything be accessible from the start of learning, not retroactively by request. And we also have the WCAG 2.1 level AA. These are the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, and this is the minimum level for digital content to be accessible. So this is just a preview, but you can access this checklist on our website. 1 second, as I pull it up. On our online teaching accessibility page, and I will put this link in the chat. When you come to this page, there are some tips, and then at the very bottom, you have a preview of the checklist here. You can download it through the last bullet item, or you can open it up in a new page to make it bigger. Let me throw this link in the chat for you. And we'll also I'll dive into an example here in just a moment. So this checklist is a guide, and it's to help ensure course materials are structured to be accessible. The focus of its content is on formatting digital content to align with the WCAG standards or best practices, meaning it's not looking at any of the subject matter or information. It's about the technical formatting, not what the content is. The checklist was inspired by OSCAR, which is our course quality review rubric and best practices for online course design. And like I mentioned, this is an optional resource. While the ADA Title II updates are a requirement, this checklist is merely intended to support accessibility and help with your own workflow and tracking. So how can you use it? So as faculty, we can use it for our own courses. As instructional designers, we can use it for any courses that we support. And it can be used as part of the design phase of building a course. So you can refer to it as you are creating new course content. You can also use it as part of a review process. So using in a formal course review or a self-review of a course and being able to track the accessibility or status of particular items. And another way that you can use it is however you would like, because it's free to customize and you can modify it. So it's openly licensed to be able to be adapted and share alike. Currently, it's very specific. The resources are specific to SUNY, but you can create your own campus version, which looks something more like this. So you can modify it however you would like. So let's jump into an example. I'll open it up in a second, but this will be my course. And we'll take a closer look at how you can use this, what the different items are within it. So this is my course. This is my Integrating Technology into Education course. At the very top of the checklist is it's frozen. So rows 1 through 5 are frozen, and this will be a summary of your course information, and also it compiles information that's been added beneath it. So up at the top, we have our course name. SUNY uses Brightspace, but wherever your location exists, course exists, you can add that URL. We have the percentage complete, and this is calculated by the items underneath it, which are actually drop downs. So for a particular item, if it's only partially complete, it will calculate accordingly up at the top. And then after that, we have our compiled recommendations or comments. And again, this is a string of text based on what is put into the items beneath it. Looking across, we have the area, accessible content, no action, completion status, recommendations or comments, and related information and resources. Under the area section, this will be the area of the course, the type of object or file, and it's structured to start from simple to more complex. So at the very top, we have course overall. And in this case, let's see, is your course syllabus accessible? For the institution that I adjunct at, we have a template. So you can modify how that best suits your needs. But then it works up into different objects and file types, all the way up to math, science, and technology. So additional external tools that will also need to be accessible. While we're here, we have not only the area, but we have the accessible content or action for that area. So it'll be best practice, a WCAG standard, and it might be something like heading levels or alternative text for images. And it might seem like those are repetitive, but it just means that it needs to be looked at for each one of those items. So for instance, having images, you'll have to check that if you're looking at HTML web pages, or Word documents, or slides. Some of the recommendations, such as this one for Allene, might be campus specific, and so you might want to modify it based upon what you have available at your institution. But for other recommendations, it's simply to use what might be available, such as a Microsoft checker. In the percentage complete, this is actually a dropdown. So for each item, you have a choice to choose, yes, it's complete, maybe it's partially complete, no, not complete, or NA, not applicable. And each one of these options has a different color to associate with the text. And it has a numerical value that helps calculate the percentage complete. So yes is 1, partially is 0.5, so it drops it. No is 0, not applicable, doesn't have a value. And if you need to remove it, just click delete, and that is also blank is 0. So then it doesn't calculate anything into it. The scores down below, I'm going to see if I can make this, maybe a little more, 2 more. The scores underneath it, so the percentage complete will impact this overall complete. 0 to 85% complete will be orange. 85 and higher will be green. Just as an FYI, if you choose to add any lines within the checklist, it will impact this percentage complete because this cell has a rather complicated formula to calculate overall. But the thing was I had to skip the header lines so that it didn't calculate these as empty cells, not contributing towards the percentage complete. So just be aware that if you add lines, you'll have to take another look at the formula. And full disclosure, I had to ask AI how to do this at a certain point because it started to get complicated. So just as a heads up for that part. Next to our percentage complete, we also have recommendations or comments. Now, this could be notes, reminders, recommendations, or explanations, depending on who's adding the information. But the text that you add here is compiled up at the top. Now, again, we're working within Excel, so it just puts it together as a string of text. So what I recommend is to at least add a period. Otherwise, it just puts it together, a period or space. Next to our recommendations and comments, we also have related information and resources. Again, these are currently SUNY relevant resources, including the Q, Microsoft, an Ally, Brightspace, because that's what our DLE is, our LMS. However, there is also more general things such as Microsoft, and you can edit it. You can make it relevant to what you need. So, my top 5 tips for trying to tackle everything that we have to tackle to make sure that it's accessible is to use the checklist as a guide or tracker. So when I take a look at my course, well, minus the couple items that I changed, it was pretty accessible, but there's still room for improvement. So, the notes can serve as little reminders for areas that you might need to come back to. Or if I make new content, then I know that I have to come back and be sure that I do that. I'd also recommend starting with the easiest or highest priority items to fix. So the priority items are obviously going to be most important, and that might be your content for the first unit or for first couple of weeks. However, working on the easiest actions can also help get them out of the way. Another approach might be that you can chunk by module or object type. For instance, if you want to make sure that all of your PowerPoints are accessible, then you can get those out of the way. And the other recommendation in terms of how to approach it is to set yourself deadlines. So, figuring out what it is that you need to tackle, and then you could add a column that is your own personal deadline for when you want to update things by. Another tip, use available accessibility checkers, but also do your own review. So anytime we have an available accessibility checker, it's an opportunity to confirm or check if something needs to be updated. But I would also recommend that you review it yourself to ensure that it's complete and that any suggestions that a checker makes make sense. And this is particularly important if you're converting something. So for instance, you might have PowerPoint up and you're using the accessibility checker in Microsoft, but then you save it as a PDF. You might also want to double check in Adobe that there isn't anything additional that it might need. Another area where this might come up is for alternative text. So with alternative text, we are describing what an image looks like. And now with AI, Microsoft or another tool can generate it based upon what it thinks it might be. But you also need to make sure that whatever description that it has generated also reflects your content and your context. So that not only is it describing what it looks like, but it also adds information and value to whatever topic you're discussing. Along those same lines, we want to use built-in tool functionality, assuming the tool is already accessible, which it should. And a good example of that is actually, like I mentioned, we use Brightspace. So I'm in just a practice course. And here, Brightspace, along with other LMSs, can have built-in rubrics. So this is a rubric that I've added in. And with rubrics, you can have your Word document, but tables can be tricky to make accessible. And you can still provide students that Word document. You can include it as an attachment, or you can turn it into a PDF. But adding that into the feedback section can get tricky, or it might create some hurdles to access. So you might still include it as a preview, but when it comes to grading, you can, at least with Brightspace and in other ways for other LMSs, you can build it within the assignment. So that way, when you go to grade, it's fewer clicks, it is better formatted for accessibility, and it also saves time for grading. Another tip that I recommend is to use or create accessible templates. Of course, this helps to ensure things are accessible. It saves time, so the structure is already there. It helps to maintain some consistencies and help your students. So it reduces cognitive load, and then students become familiar with it as well. So let's look at a couple examples for that. Also in my demo course, just to show what this might look like, I have the same template structure for my assignment instructions. So here, it might look different for your LMS, but I've essentially created just a blank template for instructions. And in here, this is a little bit bigger. In here, I've used headings, I've used the list formatter, if I had an external link, I would have a link with meaningful text. But here, and this is particular to Brightspace, you can do quick links, which will link to something within the course page. So instead of using, the URL, which might change since year to semester, you're referencing an item within the course. And I'll just quickly show how I did that. You would link it, highlight it as if you're going to link it, and up into, it's the link icon in our toolbar. And here, insert quick link to course materials, and you would just choose whatever it is that you're linking to. In my case, rubrics was what I wanted to go to. And then I just chose the relevant rubric. So, and also while we're here, you set up your assignment instructions, your template, and you just want to make sure that it's accessible. So there's that one, but this one is the better one within the toolbar. Actually, this is a good example of wanting to double check and use available checkers wherever you have them. The other recommendation that I would include, particularly for assignment instructions, if you have an assignment that students are creating an artifact that they're sharing with their peers, include specific instructions on how they can make their content accessible so that if somebody on the other end needs to access it in a different way, they can. And then whenever you're ready, you can simply copy this and add it into your actual assignment space and fill it out accordingly. While we're talking about templates, the other templates that I recommend are Microsoft. So you have options, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, but PowerPoint is the one that I found to be most helpful. And I'll just throw this link in the chat for you as well. You can search for accessible templates within Microsoft. So when you open up PowerPoint, you can go to File and then search for templates and then search for accessible. And then you can choose from there. So what I did was I chose one, but then I modified it for my purposes and I made an accessible first one. And that was for my slides. And then I duplicated that every unit, but I modified it slightly to be unique to that unit. But the general structure is all the same, and I know that it is accessible. And then I turned that into a PDF and then double checked that it was accessible using Ally within our LMS. So those are my top 5 tips. And I hope the checklist is helpful for you. I definitely welcome any feedback on it. And I also encourage you, or I want to share these resources. So beyond the checklist, we also have Oscar. Mention the accessible templates. There is also the Arizona State University has a webpage with alternative text generator. Like I mentioned, this could be very helpful, but you still need to give it another review with your own eye. We have some additional webinars under the Access for All series. The ADA Title II fact sheet for additional information. And I really want to give a shout out to check in and seek out your campus support teams and instructional designers. This might feel overwhelming, but we are definitely all in it together. So reach out to them, see if there's anything available. They might be able to help. There might be additional resources or strategies available to you, and it's a collective effort. But once you do get started, it becomes a lot easier. And I have to say that when something is not accessible now, like there are certain things that now I really enjoy simply because of the structure and how it formats things. So I encourage you to approach this openly, but little by little. So in an amazing short period of time, I have gotten through this, but are there questions or can we open it up for discussion? And I'm very happy to dive into anything particular that someone might be interested in.
Thanks, Allene. So I'll let folks know if you would like to come in and use your mic, just raise your hand and I'll promote you. Otherwise, feel free to type in the chat. These are wonderful resources and we worked together and I learned something I didn't know. So this is awesome.
Thank you. I'm, can I ask the participants? Does,
Of
does,
course.
do any other campuses have a resource like this? I'm curious if there are other variations or if there are things being done similarly. I'll also take thumbs up or thumbs down if this seems helpful. We have a question. Are there any specific free resources available to help math faculty make their charts, graphs, equations, etc. accessible beyond equation makers? Excellent question. I will take a look at what we have. So I have here, DeQ University has some information about how to approach it, but I don't know. So this is information on how to approach it. This isn't necessarily it's a resource. It's not necessarily a tool, but this page, I'll throw this in the chat for you. This page might be helpful. And I welcome if anybody else has, particularly in the math and sciences, have come across something that's helpful. I think this is an area that can trip people up because it just requires looking at it a little bit differently. And I see somebody adds, I've created more of a tracking checklist, but not as in-depth. Feel free to combine if you know, something from here is good and you want to add it to yours, by all means, particularly with the drop downs, that might be helpful.
Allene, when you were talking about templates, I wanted to put in a plug for the DLE templates that we designed. These are templates that were created in Brightspace for the range of modalities, instructional modalities from asynchronous online all the way to face and everything in between, blended and high flex and synchronous. And so the templates themselves are aligned with Oscar and also have been optimized for accessibility. So if you're looking for a course template that can quick start faculty into a good, effective, accessible course design, you could check out those templates. They're available as Brightspace zip files, but they're also posted there in that Google folder as common cartridge files. So you could potentially import them into other learning management systems. And just want to say, it doesn't guarantee accessibility. Once you start putting content in there, then, that requires that you follow the checklist. So just wanted to put a plug into that, in for that.
Thanks. I actually added the link in the chat for you. As a heads up, you
Great.
definitely give an extra review, particularly if you are not a SUNY campus, because there might be some SUNY branding. So just pull that up. There's a couple questions in the chat. So are you aware of any resources to make music courses accessible? Have a one-page checklist in a Word document for accessibility and rely on Allene. So great question, Renee. I think that's a good overall question. And then you kind of have to narrow it down into the objects and items that you have within the course. So if we're talking about audio pieces, that one's a tricky one. And I would have to first refer you to your accessibility coordinator. But then I think, and I welcome thoughts from the chat as well. I would like to think that you can describe it to a certain degree via text. Perhaps you could also share sheet music if available, so you see it kind of in a visual form. But then beyond that, I'm not quite sure. Does anyone else have any other comments that could help out for audio, for music? Was there another item within your course that you were thinking of, or was it particular to the audio? The sheet music. Ah, okay, okay. Yeah, reaching out to the publisher. Yeah. Are there, and this is a question I don't know the answer to, are there tools that you can create your sheet music? I wonder if that would help. And you add, they were unable to assist. I would find an alternative. Because if it's not accessible and the publisher unfortunately is not willing to make it accessible, then you would have to provide something that is. Yeah. If anybody else is in a similar predicament, I'd welcome input. I'll put it this way. If you have an article, so if you have an article from a publisher and the publisher is not willing to make it accessible, you can, I think technically you are allowed to, under fair use, you would be allowed to provide it in an alternative format because you're not changing the content, you're changing how it is being shared. So you might be able to reformat it. So along those same lines, could you do the same thing for sheet music? That might be a question. Yeah, like Erin mentions, that might be a question for your disability services office. And you could throw in your librarian in there too, because they're helpful. They're a helpful group to be in touch with. Oh, sorry, I'm just catching up on the comments. It's frustrating because the instructor built the course from scratch. Wonderful course, but causing an issue. Yeah. Oh, as Renee asking AI. Yeah, I would explore your resources and double, triple check with your accessibility officer. But there might be some information that you can share when somebody is registering for the course so that they know this is what to expect. Okay, let me check up on some other comments.
I'll help you get back there. Did you get to Dana? I don't want to miss her. They use Ally.
Yeah, using Ally, I realize it's a very low level accessibility check. Getting faculty on board has been challenging. Challenging to use Ally or just simply to make things accessible? If it's to make things accessible, it's a culture change and it's a workflow change. Something that, yeah, it's the work. Something, there's a, yeah. So I think part of it is understanding your group and perhaps what their strengths are, if you can leverage those, what your available resources are, and also the style of your group. Some folks might be more keen to have like designated, what do we call them? Like a study hall time. Study hall is not the word, but a best designated time where you as an ID or an accessibility coordinator, you know, here is a half-hour, lunch period time, just come with whatever you have. So you're making yourself, like, thank you, drop in, where you're making yourself available. So that might be one way. Another thing, another way would be to, there's another group that's doing an accessibility challenge. where they're laying out a plan, and then you have to accomplish certain things. And I'm not sure, but maybe you win a prize at the end. So you kind of make it into. And then another idea is if your group is a little more scattered in terms of location and availability, and a drop-in is not utilized, you can make short bite-sized videos or include short little announcements. And if you have like a general announcements thing, you can also, I don't want to connect this so much to the ADA Title IIs, but there's the reality that we do have a deadline. You can kind of broadcast, or think of it like New Year's Eve. Like, okay, we have X amount of months until until the deadline, until the confetti comes out. So here's where you should be. So while you might not have direct contact, you can try to help them, guide them along the way. And the other idea that I actually share with my educational technology students, they're first and second year undergraduate students, I share simulations. So here's a simulation of someone who has a visual impairment. And it's just a video, and it's a bicycler going through New York City, and it shows basically the same scenes, but it shows what those look like with different visual impairments. I do the same thing for auditory overstimulation, autism, learning disabilities in terms of dyslexia, and how words are formed. And I might, there's a web page with how it sounds to have a hearing impairment. So, you know, if you have a slight hearing impairment, you're in a restaurant trying to talk to somebody and hear them on the other side of the table. And then you can move the slider up all the way to a severe impairment, and then you can't even hear the waiter. So that's just a little simulation, and that can be done asynchronously. So if you provide a training page, you know, they can explore that at their leisure. And I think also the big part of it, and I'm still on this one question, a big part of it is also administrative buy-in and administrative support. So it's one thing to say, you know, to have one or two people say, this is important. But if your students also express how it's helpful to them, or other faculty, or your provost, then it becomes a lot more about like, this is going to better not just our students, but our quality of content that we provide them. So think about what are the, you know, what might work best for your group. Okay. And I'm going back in the chat to make sure that I've covered all the questions. Elizabeth adds, thanks for the resource, been using many GPTs and GEMs to create long alt text descriptions for the really complex graphs and charts. Definitely better with paid versions. So I'm hoping to find something free. Also, it feels a little like sometimes the long alt text descriptions does the interpreting for the learner, and the skill they are needing to practice and interpret the graphs and charts. Any guidance for that? I would wonder, I'd be curious if it becomes a matter of the wording. So instead of saying, and I'm going to do very boiled down examples. So instead of saying, this chart shows the number of graduates this year, instead of saying that, you could say, describe it visually so that they have to do the interpretation part, but you have done your part by describing what it looks like, meaning in the vertical axis, we have number of students. On the horizontal axis, we have the colleges. There are bars indicating the number of something like that. That would be my thought. But I'm also learning more about graphs and charts as well. Oh, and of course, Erin, thank you. No, that's a different. But Erin adds to another question. You know, you want your graphs and charts to be accessible. and also any other items. So adding alt tags, images, captions on video, descriptive links, that sort of thing. Keep on going down. And, oh, thank you for all of the resources and links. Thank you, everyone. Are there other questions, or is anyone having, aside from, the items that have been shared, I'll flip it around. Has anyone had any success with something in particular that you would like to share or think would be helpful for others? Well, hopefully the checklist will be helpful for you. And again, take it, run with it, make it your own. If you modify it, feel free to share with me again. I'm curious to see how things will develop. This is an effort that will require some time up front, but once you get started, it will get easier towards the end. Elizabeth adds, just using AI to create the long alt text, that's been a game changer in terms of how much time things take. Yeah. We'll become more familiar with it and it will get easier. Thank you, everyone. I will hang out for a minute if anybody else wants to chat. Otherwise, I appreciate you all joining and take care.
Thanks so much, Allene, and thanks to all of the attendees for your participation in today's webinar. I would like to give you a quick preview of tomorrow's session, which is on the slide. For more details, you can go to the NDLW National Distance Learning Week website. Recordings will also be posted on that website, so you'll get a link to the recording for the session today and any of the other ones that are taking place this week. National Distance Learning Week is sponsored by USDLA, who also hosts additional events this week, so broader than the SUNY events for this week. There's additional ones that you can see on the USDLA website or the National Distance Learning Week website, and so check them out. And then we have a survey, a feedback survey that we'd love to have you fill out. And Erin has posted the links to all of those things in the chat I see. Hi, Rachel, I just saw you. Thanks very much, everyone, for joining us today. And thank you again, Allene, for your beautiful checklist.
Thank you, everyone.